Coming to you live from the palatial studios of PBJ Productions. Welcome to Patrick and BJ Talk Real Estate, where we talk about life, the universe, and everything as it relates to real estate. Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Patrick.
And we're here talking all things real estate. And Patrick, you had some stuff you wanted to talk about today that you found.
You know, I really want to talk about the 6 biggest mistakes that home buyers make.
Okay.
When they're buying a house.
Okay.
And of course, like if there's, what would we be worth if we can't help you avoid those mistakes at the same time?
Yeah.
Right? Well, I'll jump into the first one. Not thinking ahead and considering long-term implications of a home purchase. I get into it a lot when clients tell me, we meet somebody at the first get-go and you start getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Like, my brain is mentally taking notes.
Yeah.
Are they planning for a family? Are they thinking about getting a dog? Are they,
Yeah.
Any kind of clues that they give me.
Yeah.
When we go look at a house and they might be like, oh, this might be a really sexy looking house. Might be really, this kitchen, this bathroom, whatever. Or it might be the workshop. Then I'm there to remind them, hey, remember you told me this? What about this?
Sure.
Oh, you guys talked about you're going to expand your family.
Right.
So, a lot of times, and you might not be able to do that all in one step, right? It might start with, let's get a condo. Well, should that be close to town? Should it be a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom?
Sure.
Depending on budget. Oh, maybe we can't get this in our budget over here. Maybe we can go a little further away. You'll have to put up with the commute.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I think maybe another part of that, and this may be in one of the other 6, but that goes with that is, someone can get excited about a property and say, no, we're going to do it. It's at the top end of our budget, beyond the top end of our budget. We can get it. But, one of the things I tell all of my clients when I first meet with them is it's wonderful that you want to own a home, but you also want to be able to go out for dinner or go to a movie or just hang out, whatever the case might be. So I think that's another important thing that we, maybe it's this way, because we as the agent are not as emotionally invested as the purchaser, right? I'm 100% invested in serving my clients, but maybe more objectively in terms of what we're looking at and the pros and cons that I will lay out to my clients. Here are some pros and cons, and have you thought about this? And, we mentioned these things when we had first talked. So how does this fit in what you're thinking? So
exactly. I could be excited about a property, but I'm not the one writing the check, and that keeps me from being emotionally involved in the decision-making process.
Yeah.
So we could be the litmus test.
Mm-hmm.
We could be the filter. We could be the sounding board.
Yes.
Whatever they told us, whatever clients have told us, we can tell it back to them, remind them, like, things can change. Totally understand that.
Right.
We could find a house that they weren't looking for in the first place. Maybe there's a specific opportunity comes up.
Right.
But yes, that's number 1 was not thinking ahead.
Okay.
And the second one, we covered that right now, overextending yourself financially without a clear plan for paying for the home.
Yeah.
So you covered that.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that is there's our part to that. There's a part where you need to sit down, you, the buyer, need to sit down or have sat down with your mortgage broker or your bank and gotten those numbers from them in terms of what makes sense and what's feasible and how do we proceed from here.
Well, and you never know what can happen, even if you don't expect it to happen. So if you bought a house 2 years ago, or even last year, I locked in for 5 years at 2.9%,
right?
Whatever, something like that. And depending on the size of your mortgage, if you're on a variable, and now the interest rate has changed, I hope and I pray that people have planned for that.
Sure.
Because and be prepared maybe to pay interest only for a little while until the interest rates come back down. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Number 3, not considering all the costs involved in home ownership, such as maintenance, taxes, and home insurance.
Yeah.
There's probably more we can add to that.
I think there's part of the purchase process expenses that go into that, but that might be another one. of these that we get to. But certainly, as a renter,
Mm-hmm.
you're not thinking about taxes, and you're not thinking about kind of just whatever the expenses are of, hey,
My
this
roof.
broke or that broke
Yeah.
or this needs to be replaced. What do I do if I'm a renter? I phone the landlord.
Right. Where I've replaced my washer dryer. I've been in my place for a while. Washer dryer. So they're going to be coming up again. When they start breaking down. Oh,
Yeah.
but we repaired it.
Yeah.
We're on our second hot water
Yeah, the hot
tank.
water tanks are classic, right? Because back in the day, the hot water tank would be like 12 years, and then the more efficient the hot water tanks have gotten, the lower their lifespan.
Yeah, yeah. And I got a bigger hot water tank now that barely fit because there's 6 of us in the house.
Right.
Where we moved in, was there 3, 4? I can't remember. It was a long time ago. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm staring at that roof. We've been in our house 15 years, and it's like, okay, the roof's okay, but it's, I have to start thinking
Yeah,
about
it's getting
budgeting for that.
close, right? Because 25 years is usually
Right, if they even last that long.
right,
And it's leaked
2025.
twice.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
and there's probably more than that, right? So if
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like
Well,
drainage issues,
Sure. Yeah.
all kind of things.
The other one that you mentioned there is taxes. Typically, taxes get tacked onto your mortgage payment,
Yes,
but
conveniently.
right? But you can have it set up. I had it one time, my house. I had it set up on a HELOC, so I was making the payment, and I had to also make sure I was putting aside, because I was paying the interest and something on the principal,
Mhm.
but I had to make sure I was accounting for the taxes. Otherwise, I was getting a tax bill at the end of the year with no money paid towards it or saved towards it.
Right, and that could be thousands.
Right.
Yeah. And around property tax time, as an owner, you'll have to, even if it's taken out automatically from your bank, they'll make the payments for you. Make sure you still have to go to the city hall. Now it's all online, and you could at least register? I don't know, claim it. You have to claim your homeowner grant, and that you paid to avoid penalties.
Yeah.
So there's always something to look out for there.
Right. And another one is insurance. Home insurance is different than renter insurance.
Yes.
Right.
Thinking, right, so you would normally have tenant insurance
Mhm.
for contents,
Mhm.
but it wouldn't cover the structure
Right.
of the property. So as a homeowner, you want to have your own contents insurance covered,
Yeah.
especially if you have expensive things, right?
Yeah.
By the time you put new furniture in there, appliances, whatever, and then and the structure.
Yep. And we're talking about a mortgage where the mortgage is not going to get approved without you typically showing the insurance.
And then strata, by law, you have to have it.
Strata insurance
If you move
for
into
condo insurance. Yeah.
a townhouse, duplex, anything like that.
Right.
What was the other one here? You know what? Some people have done this to me, clients of mine,
Okay.
and their mistake would be not doing a home inspection with a home inspector to understand the risks and to negotiate repairs and improvements with the
Yeah.
homeowner. And this hasn't been in the form of like, oh, just that's okay, I'm not going to have an inspection.
Right.
But they would have somebody else that's not a home inspector. Home inspector would typically
Yeah.
look at 1,000 houses in a year,
Right.
and they're just used to seeing the signs and symptoms of problems.
Yeah.
So they've got that trained eye
Sure.
looking at spaces.
Yeah.
Not that like an engineer or a contractor for residential property would be unfamiliar.
Mhm.
But I always think like you've got the trained professional. You're gonna have they can't see through the walls.
Yeah.
But at least you have somebody that's looked at 1,000 houses that could at least be able to spot those things that maybe to the
Yeah.
untrained eye.
Sure.
Like I'm not a home inspector and I've seen lots of houses, and maybe I notice something sometimes
Yeah.
if I spend enough time in that property.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not practice for me. I'm not actively looking for problems.
Yeah. And I would say in 10 years, I can recall, and it worked out fine, but one client who did his own inspection,
Mm-hmm.
and he was an engineer.
Fair.
So, and when he did it, what he did was way more detailed than an inspector would do normally.
Fair.
Right. So when I went there, because I'm there with him, he's putting on coveralls and he's actually going down in the
He's in the attic crawl space where
everything. and he's crawling right through the crawl space. He's not just looking down there. He's going down there with a flashlight and whatever else he's got. And
Not everybody's got that attention to detail. I can understand that.
yeah, and like I said, in 10 years, that's one guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? One person. And,
Even on new construction.
yeah,
You know what? There's so many times I've listed properties that are like a few years old. People have lived in the properties, and then all of a sudden the home inspector comes in. We've got a deal on the table,
yeah,
and then the vent from the bathroom to the roof is not attached, right? Because the roofers don't do
sure,
it,
sure.
and the Tin Man was a HVAC. Whoever
Yeah.
does the HVAC, Tin Man.
Yeah.
They'll leave it there, assuming that the roofer will attach it.
Right.
And then they don't, and then
Right.
what do we find? We find mold.
Yeah.
Or if
Right.
it's not sealed property, there's
Yeah.
just little things that one contractor will assume the other contractor's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. It can slip through the cracks.
Right. So
So-
even on new construction, you really want to avoid things like that. That's just the most common thing that I've noticed.
Yeah, for sure. What are we on? Number 3, number 4? Or is that number 3 we just did?
4.
So we've done 4 already.
We've done
right?
4 already.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have 2 left. So number 5, not paying attention to location factors such as surroundings and likelihood of resale in the future. That's my biggest thing. Every house we look at, I really like this house. Yes, but what about the layout? What about it's on a busy road?
Right.
I always bring it up. Well, from experience, right?
Sure.
If this kind of property in the past has been tough for me to sell,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do that again when these clients go to sell in the future.
Yeah.
So it's self-serving and I'm protecting my clients at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
That's simple.
Yeah, and I think that's, it's important for us to understand, not for us, we understand this, but it's important for everybody to understand what it is we are doing as realtors. We are here as professionals in the industry. We're here to serve our clients and to offer a part of that service is giving our expertise where it's warranted. And if at the end of the day, you're the client and you make a decision, you're the one who has to live with that decision. I tell my clients right up front, I want to give you all of the information and all of the tools and my opinion where it's warranted and expertise where it's warranted,
Mhm.
so that you can make an informed decision. Right? So
Well-
that you've thought it through. Like you said, what about the busy road? What about, the layout?
The layout. The repairs. Are you sure you can finance those repairs or cover those costs of repairs?
Yeah,
Like,
or even, okay, you understand that there's a condo going in right over there.
or could be.
It's
Yeah,
slated to go
yeah,
in.
Absolutely.
And how does that affect your ability to have peace and quiet?
The lot itself could be an issue.
Sure.
Everybody dreams about like the perfect flat usable lot. Well,
Well, this is in Alberta,
it's not Alberta, and we live on a mountain range
Right.
on an island.
right?
So there's some steep slopes, and as like the older construction used up all the flat land,
Right?
and as new construction goes up,
Right?
you're usually on a slope somewhere, right?
Sure.
That doesn't mean it's always going to affect it, but it might affect, like, let's say the driveway.
Sure.
You might have, maybe it might be a slight slope, but one of those like real steep slopes.
Yeah.
I've sold those houses in the past. It's always taken longer.
Yeah.
Has it affected the price? Yeah, probably slightly,
Yeah.
depending on what market.
Sure.
If it was a hot market, maybe not as much, but if it was a slow market, it affected it more.
Sure.
And maybe you can't control, when your company is going to transfer you or have an opportunity to move away
Yeah.
for better employment.
Yeah.
So, I've always looking out for those kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The last one, number 6, going at it alone and instead of seeking advice and guidance from professionals, real estate professionals.
Sure.
So,
Because I read something on the internet, so now I know everything.
well, that's one thing, right? But there's no concept, no context, no experience, and like half of our getting you to the place that you want to go is problem solving. So
Sure.
if I've solved these problems before and I've gotten better at solving those problems,
Right.
and hopefully none of those come up.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like the years of experience that we have, the transaction experience that we have, that's what's there to help us. Who to get a hold of? How do we get around? Like, oh, we didn't There was nothing wrong with our house when we first bought it. And then over time, this kind of problem creeped
Yeah.
up, and now it's discovered that you didn't know about. Well, how do we get around that problem? Oh, you know what? I just did that last year. I know who to call, or
Hmm.
I did that a few years ago.
Yeah.
This is how it was solved.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. And something that comes to mind is we asked Devin, and if you want, you can go back and catch the video where we interviewed Devin at about their first home purchase. And remember when we asked Devin, why did it take you so long to uh, finally, buy your first home?
well, now I know why you brought up, like, I read it on the internet.
Uh,
That's why you
yeah,
brought it up.
right. And that's exactly what Devin said in the video. He said, well, I just believed what I read on the internet. And him and his wife, he said, we believed what we read on the internet. And he said, it wasn't until, and basically what he read, whatever it was, told him that he couldn't, or they couldn't purchase, right? And when they finally made some calls and started talking to professionals, so mortgage brokers and the bank and in this case myself as the agent, they found out, hey, wait a minute, not only can we can buy a place that we like, we can be in an area that we like,
It all
and
worked out.
and it worked out wonderfully for them. But it came back to talking to the professionals and asking questions. And I would say this, throughout the whole process, they asked questions and they were open to the answer. They weren't. Yeah, have you ever asked a
Mm,
question where you already think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask you?
just to be, like,
I don't know why.
disagreeable, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. We've all done it at some point, right?
I can be disagreeable.
Right? But that's not going to help you if you're engaged. I think of this for myself when I engage a professional. So my accountant says do something a certain way. I may ask, okay, well, explain to me why we're doing it this way, or what is the rationale of this. But I'm not going to tell them, well, I read an article on the internet, so I know more than your 20 or 30 years of experience, and that you're a CPA, and what does that mean?
This goes back to the same thing for, like, oh, I'm going to do my home inspection. Unless you're the engineer that meticulously knows a lot about
Yeah,
residential construction in
right,
the area, everything,
right,
right? But, like, yeah, maybe you should listen to the accountant
right,
or the realtor or the mortgage broker,
or the
or
lawyer
you
or
can always get a
whoever.
second opinion
Sure,
somewhere,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
but
at least it's still you're conferring with
yeah,
professionals
yeah.
in the respected industry.
To me, Devin was a perfect example of that. Like I was stunned actually when he said that.
Hmm.
That what? Yeah.
You
So
just didn't know.
yeah, and
Hmm.
so it's so important to engage professionals and then to consider. I'm not saying just blindly go ahead with something, but consider what they're telling you and apply those things to what you're doing. Right. It would be like, for example, one of the things that I have for my clients is a home stager. So, it would be great if the home stager came in and did everything, because sometimes my clients do that.
Hmm.
But other times my clients will have the home stager come in and this is a service they offer where they'll take their advice and do the work. But they're not gonna, if they already were like, well, I read this and this and this, so I'm just gonna do it all myself.
Yeah.
Why even bother with the home stager? It's an example. Right? So, yeah, I think it's so important to engage professionals and make sure that we being the general that we're getting their input and applying it appropriately.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard advice.
Sure,
Sometimes it's something you don't want to do.
sure,
But from experience,
right?
if people are saying,
So, an example would be you might get an inspection done and they might tell you there's a foundation issue here.
mm-hmm,
And you might, where you have to sit down with them and your clients and talk about, okay, this foundation issue isn't just a crack in the wall,
right, it's a bigger issue.
right? We could
Yeah.
be looking at $100,000 bill when
Mm-hmm.
the dust settles. So you need to make a hard decision at this point. How important is it?
Right, but
The
you
home
can't do
versus
that
the
until you have all the information
right.
from those experts.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, we're estimating 100,000.
Yeah.
It might be more if
Right.
it's worse than that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it even worth it at that point?
Yeah.
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 Where they would go back to you. Okay, even if we put 100 grand into this house,
This is what the value of your home becomes. This is what the market looks like in this area. This is where
yeah,
these numbers shake down. And what do you think of this?
if it makes money, if it makes sense to that client.
Yeah.
Like, what if it's a waterfront property and 100 grand? Well, it won't make any difference to the value, but we're gonna stay here for 20 years, so it's worth it to that client, maybe,
Right.
if
Yeah.
it's something extra special.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but that's the end of our list.
Okay.
Hopefully hopefully you find that useful, and if there's any other questions just like that, where that, you know what, put it in the comments below. If you have questions other than that,
For sure.
that would be great, and we'll respond to those.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you haven't, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us with growing the channel and getting the word out. And if you think there's people that would get some value out of what we talk about or the interviews that we have on here, please send them the information for how they can register or subscribe. And if you have any questions, like Patrick said, just send them our way. Our contact info is in the description, and we're happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
See ya.